PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here in the sports and entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. Go on to their website, PRConnectionsRadio.com. Check out all the shows we have on there. We have dozens of shows, amazing content on PR Connections Radio, including this show, Vegas Hockey Hub. So go to their website. And if you are on the PR Connections Radio YouTube channel, welcome in. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you not miss any episodes and any shows that are on the network. If you are on Vegas Hockey Hub's YouTube channel, I also say welcome in. We upload content daily onto our YouTube channel. And if you like videos just like this, like, share, and subscribe. And so go to our social medias on Twitter at Vegas Hockey Hub and go onto all the social medias at PR Connections Radio. And don't forget to follow your host at Ian Rachiele 18. And as the hockey season is getting closer and closer and closer, it is time to bring in someone who's very knowledgeable, someone who knows when it comes to the world of hockey, what's going on. Vegas Mike, welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub. It is a pleasure having you on the show.
Ian, thank you for having me on your show. But you say too many nice things. I don't know anything about hockey, but I do try to understand.
Hey, you know what? I say the same thing. You know, I know enough to get by. That's what I always say when it comes to the world of hockey. Now, with the Vegas Golden Knights, they are your reigning, defending Stanley Cup champions. We know what they just did 90 days ago, but it's the start of the new season. Camp has just started. You have the rookies doing the face-off tournament coming up very soon, and you have the prospect watch, which we will definitely do later on here on Vegas Hockey Hub. But I want to ask you, Vegas Mike, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, can it be done? Can the Vegas Golden Knights go back to back and do what the Tampa Bay Lightning did just a few years ago?
Anybody can do anything. But as we've talked before, and you know, the game is played on the ice. So the players are there, the potential is there, but things have to fall correctly. And you know what that means? Few injuries and a lot of playing time for the entire team.
And I don't normally bring up the odds, but, you know, Caesar Sportsbook, one of the most reliable sports books we have here in the state of Nevada and in the whole world, the Vegas Golden Knights, surprisingly, are not the favorites to go back to the Stanley Cup Finals. Doesn't that surprise you, considering that they just won the Stanley Cup?
Where are they at? About third?
They are third. That is absolutely correct.
And they have above them. Who do they have above them? Yeah.
Right now, they have the Carolina Hurricanes and the Colorado Avalanche right now as the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup. Of course, Carolina coming out of the East and Colorado being the favorite out in the West.
And what did Colorado do to deserve that bump up?
Well, Colorado did some moves this offseason. They got Ross Colton from the Tampa Bay Lightning. They made some good, valuable moves, for example, like getting Alex Newhook from the Montreal Canadiens. You also had a situation where, you know, even though they got rid of some players, they did add some members to the bottom six. You got rid of Eric Johnson on the defense. That is unfortunate. But they bring in guys like Thomas Tatar, who did very well in Vegas, a former Golden Knight, to be part of that bottom six. So Colorado made some moves this offseason, and them trying to get better in terms of getting Miles Wood, for example, for the New Jersey Devils. So I will say for Colorado, that might be why, considering all the moves they made this offseason.
And what did Boston do to get bumped out of the picture?
Boston, and we did a offseason review here on Vegas Hockey Hub. I'll leave a link right here if you want to go back and watch it. I explained that the Boston Bruins, they just lost a lot of their depth. Patrice Bergeron is gone. David Krejci is gone. Taylor Hall, Nick Foligno was sent to Chicago. And you also had Connor Clifton. He left and went to Buffalo. So I will say for the Boston Bruins, it really just their depth is really depleted now in Boston. But even despite all that, the Boston Bruins are 14-1 to win the Stanley Cup.
And the Knights are what to win?
They are 10-1. 10-1.
And of course, Carolina being above Boston is probably one of the more surprising, even though Boston lost some people. I don't see where Carolina is that much better than Dallas, for instance, or than Boston. So for them to be up there at the top for the East is quite surprising. What do you think?
So I will say about Carolina, they are 7-1 right now. Colorado 8-1, Carolina 7-1. They're actually the odds-on favorite to win the entire thing. And really that has to go based off the fact that Carolina swung for the fences this offseason. They went and got Michael Bunting from Toronto. Dmitry Orlov came over from Boston. They re-signed and extend their face of the franchise, Sebastian Aho, for an 8-year deal. So I will say for Carolina, that's one of the main reasons why they're 7-1, considering the moves they made this offseason. You also have Rod Brind'Amour still as their head coach. There's general manager who took over from Ron Francis. He is still there. So for Carolina, it's really just banking off of all the young talent they have and the fact that they kept Freddie Anderson and Antti Raanta to be one of, if not the best, goalie tandem in the NHL.
Well, if you look at Carolina to the Knights really have not lost anything. I understand the players that I understand Smith is gone, but I think the odds are underestimating the Knights if they stay healthy. And it's the same with all the other teams, particularly Carolina, Boston. Any of those teams need to stay healthy. But I think the odds are a little off. Now, I don't know who's making the bets that create those odds. Obviously, the bets are coming in to trigger those odds. The betting house has set up the odds, but the bets are also coming in to support it. So it's quite a surprising, and I would suggest maybe a little too early to say that Carolina could be 7-1. I think Colorado's always competitive. Boston's competitive. Edmonton not being in there is a surprise.
Well, I'll say this about Edmonton. They're actually kind of around the same mark as Vegas, but that's because they got two of the top 5 players in the NHL. You have Connor McDavid, the best hockey player in the world, and then Leon Draisaitl, who I put 4th on that list. Mm-hmm. I would say he's a top 4 player in the league. I mean, as long as you have McDavid, as long as you have Draisaitl, Stuart Skinner's got to stay healthy and stay there all year long. Jack Campbell's got to be a reliable backup. But I will say with Edmonton, I believe they are around 9-1 as well. There's like 4 or 5 teams that are around the 9-1, 10-1 category when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights.
Well, 7-1, 9-1, 10-1 is not a big spread in differential. So a few bets here and there could change that. But I would say Carolina's probably a little too optimistic at this point, and Boston's a little too underrated. I would say the Knights are a little underrated, and Colorado's a little overrated, and Edmonton's a little underrated. I would say Colorado being put above Vegas and Edmonton is probably a little too enthusiastic by the odds makers. Just my basic assessment. Now, I would go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I would say as the season unfolds, obviously we'll know a lot more. But again, I think it comes down to injuries. So the odds makers must be betting that the Knights get injured a lot. That's the only thing I can think. The Knights are being a little bit on the older side of all the teams. Not old, but on the older side. I think they're above the midpoint. There must be some betting odds going there that people get hurt. What do you think, Ian?
There's always a possibility. And being a Vegas Golden Knights fan and being a hockey fan as I am, I'm aware of Mark Stone and his injury history. I'm aware of Jack Eichel and what happened with his neck. That is something odds makers are definitely going to point out, is that Jack Eichel, all it takes is for one bad hit for him to mess up his neck again. Or there's one, when it comes to Mark Stone and his injuries over the last couple of years, all it takes is just that one hit for Mark Stone to be put on the shelf again. And it's unfortunate what I'm about to say here, but it's a reality. Vegas Golden Knights, a lot of their players are in their late 20s to early 30s. So when you have guys who are older, the likelihood of getting injured and the more likelihood that you are going to re-injure is possible. So I understand why the Golden Knights are 10-1. I comprehend it. I agree with you, Vegas, Mike. Vegas is underrated considering they are the reigning defending Stanley Cup champions. And considering the Colorado, they're on the same level as Edmonton. They're kind of below. I will say that them being the third best in the Western Conference, that will not do. And since I support this team, by the way, I do want to quickly mention that since I have family there, the Seattle Kraken are 30-1 to win the Stanley Cup. Now,
and rightfully so.
And I'm not going to jump out and say Seattle is going to win it, but considering what they did last year, considering what they did, that's pretty impressive, though. That entering year 3, Seattle is 30-1 to win the Stanley Cup.
That's not bad, but 30-1 probably is right. But I would say the Knights are being penalized a little bit for their age. That is understandable, but then they're not being given credit for their experience. I think what last year proved was experience topped age, experience topped youth. There was no doubt about it. And I think that's what Pittsburgh's trying to do, for instance, is saying, hey, that worked pretty good for Vegas. Let's move to it. So I think experience tops age, and I think several teams are seeing that. And youth is always nice. And it's good to be able to run 100 miles instead of 50, but it doesn't mean you're smart enough or talented enough or experienced enough. So I don't think the Knights are being given enough credit for their experience in the betting odds.
No, they are not. And also considering the fact that the odds makers have the Golden Knights at 101.5 for the over and under. When it comes to points, 101 for the Vegas Golden Knights. I find that to be a bit disrespectful according to the odds makers. Now, I will mention the Pittsburgh Penguins since you did mention them. Riley Smith, former Golden Knight, now in Pittsburgh. They make that massive trade to get Erik Karlsson from San Jose to be alongside Chris Letang. Now you have Sidney Crosby, you have Evgeny Malkin, Riley Smith. You have a lot of these veterans in Pittsburgh. They are 22-1 to win the Stanley Cup in Pittsburgh. And with them missing the playoffs last year, here's my take on it. I think the reason why Pittsburgh did it is because for the first time in 17 years, Pittsburgh missed the Stanley Cup playoffs. So instead of rebuilding, they decided to, you know what, we're going to go for it, and we're going to see if we can do something before our window is officially over.
Okay. I think that, again, my assessment is the Knights are not given enough credit for experience and being over-penalized for age. I think that's why they have Colorado ahead of them, because they're expecting Colorado's mix to be better. They're not penalizing them for age. They're giving them credit for youth. Carolina seems to be getting the credit for age because they are aged a little bit. So I think they're being given credit for experience and not being penalized like the Knights. Edmonton is kind of in the middle. You toss here and a toss there. So I can understand why Edmonton is, but the Knights are a little underrated, not getting credit for the age. But you know what, Ian? I think let's talk a little bit about 2 years from now, 3 years from now. You know, the salary cap goes up to 87.7 million next year, and then 92 million the year after that. I tell you what, there's going to be a lot of room for these experienced players, and there's a lot of teams, including the Knights, that are going to do really good. So if I was these teams, it's good to have all these young guys running around, and they need a place to run around at. But I think with the salary cap going up, those that are going for experience are going to be much more successful in the NHL, because what this low salary cap, and I call it low in today's age of salaries in professional sports, but what it's done is it's made you go for 2/3 youth, 1/3 experience. But I think with a $10 million salary cap increase nearly in 2025 over 82 million last year, as a 10 million salary cap increase, experience is going to become a lot more valuable. And I believe the teams that are more highly experienced in are going to be getting more credit than they have in the past. So the odds makers are going to have to change their attitude a little bit and their way of looking at it.
And the odds makers are definitely going to have to change their attitude, but I also believe the salary cap going up is going to benefit one team, and that is our Vegas Golden Knights. Because if you have $10 million more in salary cap in 2025 than you did in 2022, that means Vegas isn't going to have to be in a cap crunch like they have the last 2 years. I mean, everyone in Vegas knows about the Vegas Golden Knights pretty much exploiting the long-term IR to their advantage. Everybody knows they put players on long-term IR to get around the cap hit, and then when somebody else gets injured, they have to put somebody out. Like
you mean Tampa Bay didn't?
I think Tampa Bay did for a little bit. I know Montreal did for a little bit. But when it came to Vegas, it was notorious during the Mark Stone situation how they were kind of moving around the long-term IR to make all the money work.
Is that notorious or is that intellectual?
It's intellectually notorious.
I think that's a play on adverbs there. But let's talk about it. I think it's actually quite brilliant. I mean, the rules are what the rules are, and the league made them. And so if the leagues are going to make those kind of rules, they're going to have to – the other teams get the same opportunity as the Knights. There's no difference. They can all do the same thing, but I think they got so ingrained in this thing that we need 2/3 youth, 1/3 experience to stay under the salary cap that I believe they are having problems breaking out. And what the Knights has taught the league, in my view, is particularly as the salary cap is going up, is you need a better mix of experience than you do youth. This thing about, we're going to go out and have half a team or 2/3 of a team of youth, and so we can make the playoffs 4 years from now, is not going to cut it. Fans and these prices of these tickets, the fans are not going to cut it with the fans. I know Las Vegas has a very nice premium in their ticket prices, but so do some other teams. Do you think people want to pay these prices for a team that can't get out of the cellar? No, eventually it's going to catch up. So the salary cap increase has got to encourage those teams that don't want to live in the past to change to the future, which is you got to have experienced people. And the Knights approved it, and I think they're going to continue to prove it for the next few years.
Now, here's my idea on what you said. It's kind of a two-parter. So first of all, you will pay premium tickets if it's like an original 16. If it's Chicago, if it's Montreal, if it's Boston, it's Toronto. It doesn't matter how bad your team is. It doesn't matter how bad their team is.
You mean the Red Wings?
It's still going to be a premium.
You think the Red Wings get a premium up there?
I'll say absolutely. Little Caesars Arena, top 2 arena in the NHL. Detroit Red Wings have a passionate fan base. I get to meet some of them here in Vegas from time to time. Yeah, Red Wings are still a passionate fan base. Back when they were at the Joe, now at Little Caesars. So I'll say Detroit is a premium, but that's the first part. Is that if you're a failing team, if you're a bad team, but if you are an original 6 team, if you're part of an original 6, you're always going to make money. The Blackhawks have not been that good the last couple of years, and the Blackhawks still have been selling out the United Center again and again and again. And by the way, they just got a generational talent in the draft in Connor Bedard, who's definitely going to help the Chicago Blackhawks in the long-term future. So that's the first part. And then second, when you were talking about, these guys are talking about experience, I absolutely agree. And speaking of experience in the Vegas Golden Knights, there are certain players who are under free agency, not this year, but this upcoming free agency. 2024, the offseason is going to be very impactful for our Vegas Golden Knights. It's going to be an impactful journey here in Vegas. As we know, the MVP of the playoffs last year, the face of the franchise, really the guy who's going to be in the Golden Knights Ring of Honor when he eventually retires, Jonathan Marchessault will be a free agent next year. And with him being about 32 years old, the question is really going to be, Vegas Mike, with Jonathan Marchessault, would he take a bridge deal? Would he take a 1-year, 2-year deal to stay here? Or would he go someplace else? Because next year, free agency, there's going to be a lot of discussion involving Jonathan Marchessault.
Well, with that $4 million increase next year, and then another $6 million almost, or a little less than $5 million the year after that, I think the Knights can work Jonathan Marchessault into a 3 or 4 year deal. Again, it's the talent of the person, not their age. Now, I understand at age 35, a lot of talent declines, not because they aren't talented, but it's just the energy level, the ability to get hurt all the time. Those things play in. But I think Marchessault, with his energy level and who he is and his type of mentality, I think he can play into 35, 36 easily. And I think the Knights will work him into a contract. And with this salary increase, remember, they can backload it. Now, what this allows, knowing that you're going to be at 92.1 million in the 25-26 season, it allows them to take somebody like a Jonathan Marchessault and backload his deal and give him a really nice deal. And I don't think the Knights want to let him go, and I don't think they wanted to let Smith go. I think they just got caught in a predicament there, and that ended up being their option. But I don't think they wanted to let Smith go, and I don't think they want to let Marchessault go. So I think they will do whatever they can, include backloading it, to keep him there.
In terms of backloading a contract, would they do the same thing with Chandler Stevenson? Because Chandler Stevenson's going to be a free agent too, and he was an all-star last year here in Vegas.
I would suggest Chandler Stevenson would also be they will have the ability to backload. And I think the owner kind of alluded to that last year. They were asking him the question, and Foley kind of said, with the options that are going to present themselves with the change in the salary cap over the next couple of years, we have a lot of flexibility. I'm not quoting him, but that's basically what he was saying. And so I think he alluded to the fact that they're going to have a lot of potential. So I don't think they have to lose either one of those players, Ian. I don't think they will. I think they'll keep them. I think they'll backload them.
And it will definitely be interesting to see what happens. I definitely believe Stevenson, Marchessault. If I am an owner, if I am a general manager, if I'm an executive in Vegas, I would find a way to keep both and still find a way to give Shea Theodore his well-deserved extension when it inevitably does come. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to Vegas Golden Knights, I think they should keep a lot of them around, definitely. But look, sports is a business at the end of the day. If it does happen, it happens. Now, one player that I really am curious about is the guy who is on long-term IR, the $5 million player who the Vegas Golden Knights, for the second year in a row, are going to be paying to not be there, and that's Robin Lehner. Now, I'm not going to get into the bankruptcy. I'm not going to get into what he's doing in his personal life. I'm not going to do that. That's not who I am. What I'm going to get into, however, if you are the Vegas Golden Knights, you are at $87 million right now as a salary cap. Remember, 83.5 is the salary cap right now. So even if Vegas does find a way to shed $5 million, that would be about $800,000 under the salary cap. Would the Vegas Golden Knights find a way to either trade Robin Lehner, or would they find a way to somehow get him off their books here in Vegas?
Well, we know they have two goalies right now, Hill and Thompson. So we know they have their two goalies. We know they don't need Robin Lehner. He was a unusual commodity when they first got him. Let's call him a commodity because all these players are just commodities for these teams and for the fans. It's terrible to say that, but in the day of money, it's a commodity. Robin Lehner, I don't see him playing again for the Knights. Not ever. Will he play in the NHL? I'm not sure what the medical condition is. And again, I don't think it's our business to get into it, but it's from a business perspective. I'm not sure he'll ever play again in the NHL on a consistent basis. He may be in there for a couple games here or there. So I think that they're going to, he's on IR, he'll be on IR next year. That leaves him 1 year on the contract, right?
That would be 2 more years, actually. 2 more.
What year does his contract expire? I thought it expired in 25.
2025, yeah. So if it's this year, then it would be, yeah. So there'll be
yes, that's what I mean.
Year after
this year, he'll be on IR. Next year, they will be exposed, but they can buy it down. Remember, they're going to have that extra money under the salary cap, so they can buy him out. They can trade him and keep whatever part of the salary cap they would. They'll negotiate that. But him playing on a consistent basis, I don't see it any place. Could he be a backup? Anything's possible, but whatever the medical condition is, it's deterring him from being the best he can be.
And we have about 5 minutes left here on Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. We're here with Vegas Mike. And considering the rookie face-off, which Vegas Hockey Hub will be at, so I definitely will be making videos. I will be posting pictures onto our social media at Vegas Hockey Hub. But considering we will be at the rookie face-off here for Vegas Hockey Hub, there's some good up-and-coming talent here in Vegas. Of course, you have Paul Cotter, Pavel Dorofeyev, two young guys who have graduated to the NHL. But their number one prospect, their 2020 first-round pick, the guy who just got number 19 from Riley Smith, with his permission, of course, that's Brendan Bryson. So Brendan Bryson, playing with his college number he had at University of Michigan, number 19. And you've actually been able to see Brendan Bryson in Henderson, if I do remember our conversations correctly. So what have you really seen from Brendan Bryson? Because he was a first-round pick a couple of years ago. There's a lot of expectations on the guy who came from University of Michigan and him entering his third year playing professional hockey.
Let's say he's going to have to perform a lot better this year to meet those expectations, reality to meet expectations. I'm not a professional assessor of people's talents, but compared to some of his teammates, he seems to lack a little bit of motivation that they have. Maybe he has the talent, but seem to be a lot more motivated people on the team that seem to do a lot better than he does. I'm not saying he's not talented and he can't, but I'm not sure he's there yet. So I would say he's got a little ways to go.
And it will be interesting to see if Brendan Bryson does crack the Vegas Golden Knights lineup at some point this year. Like I said, he is, as I said with Brendan Bryson, he is entering his third professional season, going to most likely be in Henderson for one more year. And the defense, I very quickly want to mention this. Lucas Cormier, Caden Korzak, Braden Bahal, there are some good defensemen in Henderson, which has kind of led to the question, do the Vegas Golden Knights actually have a logjam on defense? Do they have so many defensemen that they actually could give up a defenseman either at the trade deadline, or they could trade an aging defenseman to free up a spot for a Bahal, for a Korzak, for a Cormier? Because these three young defensemen, they are in Henderson, and they look like they're ready to go. So
you're obviously pointing out Alex Martinez. What they lose if they lose Alex Martinez is that guy's on the ice a lot. I mean, he is one of the most on the ice people. There is. I know he got hurt last year and he got slashed in the face, but he's really there. So there again is experience that you can't beat with youth. Youth can maybe play 10 more years. Maybe he's got 1 or 2 more years. But I think you're pointing to, can they let Alex Smith go? And I would say, to repeat, I wouldn't want to see him leave.
I wouldn't want to see Alex Martinez leave either, but it is a possibility. I will point that out. It is a possibility considering this cap hit and considering the log jam they have on defense, all the defensemen they have. I mean, heck, I pretty much read out about 10 names Vegas Golden Knights would have on that roster who are defense.
Isn't this Alex Smith last year under contract?
Alec Martinez, he's a free agent at the end of this year. Yes, Alec
So
Martinez.
I would suggest, to repeat, it would be important to keep him. So unless it was just a too good to be true deal, I would say they need to keep him, because they're going to be under the salary cap, as you noted, with the long-term IR of Robin Leonard. So I think what would be it has to be a great motivation to let him go. A great motivation. Even though they got the young people, they can use them next year. He's really important to their repeat.
And we have about 1 minute left. So I have mentioned on this show that my favorite player on the Vegas Golden Knights is Braden McNabb. I'm a huge fan of Braden McNabb. I did a video on him recently. He is one of my favorite players to watch. He's a shot-blocking defenseman. He's a fighter. He's a very tough guy here in Vegas. But Vegas, Mike, to kind of end the show, and appreciate you coming on the show, do you have a favorite player in Vegas? Is there a player that you would say you like watching from the Golden Knights?
I would say, with my experience, you never have a favorite player. You have a favorite team. That's as low as I go. I never get to a favorite player because you're only going to be disappointed. you should always have a favorite team. There's people that are fun to watch, and there's some people that aren't fun to watch. But being part of a team means it's an important cog for everybody to fit together. So I would say there never should be a favorite player, in my view. Favorite team, yes, not a favorite player.
And that is words of wisdom from Vegas Mike, who I appreciate coming on this episode of Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. And until next time, continue watching hockey, go support junior hockey, and go Knights, go.
Thank you.